Welcome to the Game Plan Coaching Podcast. Today's guest is Fran Whalley, a brilliant fencing coach who brings energy, honesty, and heart to everything she does. Fran's coached athletes from their first steps in sport right through to representing Great Britain and Wales on the world stage. She's head coach at Cardiff Academy of Fencing, a coach developer with British Fencing, and works with athletes on the performance pathway, helping them thrive. In this episode, we talk about problem solving, honesty, and trust. And Fran shares a simple but powerful idea: thrive, manage, survive, to help coaches meet people where they're at. Here's Fran Whalley. Now, Fran, I think I told you before about the structure of our conversation. We'll start with a bit of a kick-off and get to know you in a second. We'll ask you to add something into our game plan and then finish up with some game-changing advice for our listeners to go and think about for their own coaching practice. But before we get into that, let's tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I have kind of been involved in coaching since I was a teenager, where I would help out at my karate club with the peewees, which were the little 3 to 5 year olds, which was adorable. When my mum set up her own club, then I went along and helped her. I kind of fell into fencing coaching. So my coach had double booked a couple of taster sessions, and he was kind of stressing out because he had 2 sessions and he's only one person. So I just said, oh, well, what needs to happen? What do I do? And I'll go and do it for you. And he showed me what I needed to cover in the sessions, and off I went and delivered 6 back-to-back taster sessions and kind of didn't look back. I've also done a bit of swimming teaching because I love swimming, and yeah, coaching is a big part of my identity and who I am.
Who or what's influenced you along the way?
So this is quite a difficult question because I feel like there've been lots of little things along my journey, lots of very difficult things and lots of very positive things that have kind of shaped who I am as a coach. If I was to kind of narrow it down, I have kind of 2 people that I feel I should mention. One is the late great David Kirby, who is an absolute pinnacle of coach development within British fencing, or was. Unfortunately, he's passed away. But he really taught me what coaching an individual rather than teaching a sport actually meant. And that was kind of a huge turning point in my coaching philosophy. And also Steve Kemp, who worked at British Fencing as head of performance and head of coaching, who taught me that I have value to add to a room when I didn't believe I did. And that kind of really helped me find my place within the high performance coaches with British Fencing. So that was another really important moment for me. And also I spent 3 months out in Budapest at a coaching academy with the International Fencing Federation. And that kind of working with international coaches, working with Master Janos Pop, was kind of a real insight into the importance of technical skills for a coach and the importance of blade work for a coach in fencing. So those are probably like my 3 kind of big star points.
And I'm sure every coach has got these kind of key influences, whether it's people or moments that kind of featured on their journey. And you mentioned about David, and like how he helped you understand like what coaching an individual really meant. But what did you take from that, and what stuck with you over the years?
It's kind of shaped sort of my approach to coaching in a really huge way. So kind of fostering and promoting creativity and having fencers solve their own problems. So within fencing, if somebody's hitting you a certain way and scoring the point, there is a million ways that you could counter that and solve it and stop it from happening. And it's not about telling them how I think they should solve it or how I would solve it. It's about giving them the tools to kind of solve it in many different ways and choosing the right one in the moment that works for them and works for the situation. And, coaching going beyond just getting them better at fencing, giving them skills in life. Even when I haven't got a sword in my hand, I'm always kind of coaching, regardless, whether it's teaching them not to leave their passports lying around or, like teaching them to kind of prioritize when they have exams and fencing and friends that they want to hang out with, there's always something that you're coaching, even if it's not just fencing.
Yeah, absolutely. And lots of the coaching tends to happen away from the piste or the pool or wherever it might be. And I'm really interested in what you just said about helping the fencers be better at solving problems for themselves. I met a fencing coach a few years ago, somebody who you know very well, and they said to me, now this might sound controversial, but they said to me that in fencing, there is a traditional mindset where the fencing coach might hold all the knowledge and then occasionally lend it to the fencer as and when they need it. Your approach sounds very different to that. And is there ever a time when you just need to tell them?
Oh, absolutely. So if they're on like their seventh fight of the day and their brain is absolute mush and they look at you and they make that face, you kind of say, all right, okay, I'll spoon feed you. It's fine. But, I try and sort of save that for the moments that it's needed rather than um, all the time. Otherwise, you're kind of glory hunting for yourself. You're kind of living through them, and it becomes very personal in a really kind of toxic way, because when they get it wrong you kind of feel like you've been wronged, but instead you kind of have to understand that it's their journey, their decisions, and you're just there to facilitate this incredible journey that they're going on. And they will make mistakes, but they are their own mistakes. The job is to help them learn from them rather than kind of be offended by them.
Totally. I mean, magic can come from mistakes. That's the way we learn if framed correctly and supported in the right way. And the fabulous Stephen Rolnick, I don't know if you know Steve, he's got a background in motivational interviewing and positive psychology. In his book, Supporting Athletes to Be Their Best, Steve talks about coaching being full of deficit detectives, coaches who are keen just to jump on the things that go wrong. And that's like the stimulus for the start of their coaching, rather than being treasure hunters on
Mhm.
coaches going out, seeing the good things and then building on there. And it sounds like your approach really aligns to that.
Yeah, strengthening strengths is an important part of the job of a coach, recognizing strength and strengthening that, not just noticing weaknesses and berating them and, like trying to steer them away.
I always think it's interesting, Fran, that as coaches learn and develop and grow, things change over time and people's views might change. There's lots of coaches who might be wedded to the way they do things, but I'm sure if they trace back their journey, their coaching approach, their style, their philosophy might have evolved over time. If you were being really honest, when you look back at when you started coaching and when you're coaching now, what's been a constant? Like, what's been central to your practice and has always continued? And is there anything you started doing that you don't do anymore?
Well, like I said, I've learned many lessons and made many mistakes. I think the main thing that's always stuck with me though is the value of hard work. Like if my fencer is absolutely grafting and, really, really trying and, just giving it all they got, I will naturally meet that. Like as a human being, I kind of feed off other people's energy. I'm getting that, then I give 100% as well. So part of my coaching philosophy has kind of always been, I don't really care how good you are or how talented you seem to be. If you're working hard, I'm working hard, and let's see what we can do. And on the bad days when they can't quite reach the same level of hard work, then I will help them, I will encourage them, because I know as a person they are a really hard worker. Determination is kind of one of my values. If I see that somebody is quite determined, then I'm naturally drawn to helping them. And I think the big thing that has changed for me is this concept of, when I first started as a coach, you have to do it this way because this is the way that I was taught that you have to do it. This is what I was told that coaching is. When you hit someone on of the head, the hand has to be in this exact position, your arm has to be this much extended with this much bend in the elbow, the cut happens at this exact moment. That's how I was taught initially. I think moving away from that and looking at the individual and what they're capable of, and you know that there's more than one right way to do it, has been a big game changer for me.
What would you say to coaches who maybe have had a similar experience to you, who were told at the beginning of their journey, whether that's through significant people, coach education, or just the environment they're working in, there's a right way and a wrong way. We know that in coaching, there's not a silver bullet. You work in the grey so much of the time. You're making the best decision you can with the information available. And from my own experiences as a coach, I remember on my level 2, just like you were taught this is the way you strike the ball with the inside of your foot. This is the way you do this, do that. And my approach in football coaching is totally different now to where I started and what I was told was right. So if coaches began that way and haven't necessarily adapted their practice in the way that you have, what would be an elevator pitch?
Coaching is a really individual journey, and it takes so much out of you that you can't be not yourself within it, because coaching isn't just a job. We can't sort of shut the laptop at the end of the day and switch off. You are constantly living, breathing, eating, sleeping your job. So if you want to make peace with that and if you want to get the most out of it, you have to find your way, your philosophy, your own journey in the same way that an athlete would. So, yes, it's really great and really helpful at the beginning to have people say, this is right and this is wrong, but always understand when you are jumping through hoops to earn the piece of paper that you need and when you're actually developing your skills as a coach.
Maybe the comparison of passing your driving test and learning to drive.
It's like once you've got the piece of paper is when you really learn how to do it.
I was talking to some coach developers the other day, and we were working off this analogy of if you support a coach to survive in a swimming pool, how do you expect them to stay afloat in the ocean? And I think coaching is the ocean, right? There's so many things that could happen, but sometimes we're not exposed to the reality of what coaching is really all about.
So it's a hard lesson.
So
teaches you a lot about yourself.
yeah, it does. And like being able to hold some mirrors up and reflect on your own practice is so important. Fran, in every episode of our podcast, we invite our guests to share something to contribute to our game plan. This is an idea. It's a shared playbook of stories, ideas, and lessons that any coach can draw on. And we're asking every guest to add something really unique. So, Fran, big moment, drum roll. What's the thing that you're bringing in and adding into our game plan?
What I would like to talk about is the importance of honesty with your athletes and trust being a two-way street. So as coaches, we know that knowing what our athlete is really thinking, what they're feeling, whether that's about their confidence, how fatigued they are, have they got any injuries, if they've got any doubts about what they're doing or, what their level of understanding is. We need that honest information, or we can't do our jobs to their full effect. And without the openness, it's really easy to miss what's going on. And you might not be leading them down the right path or doing the right training or communicating with them in the most effective way. But equally, athletes need honesty from us. So they need feedback that's not sugar-coated. They need us to have difficult conversations with them to role model that behavior of honesty and to give that back to them, because difficult conversations, it might feel easier in the moment to not have them, but it can be a barrier for progress. But they won't have difficult conversations with you unless they're honest, particularly when you're working with teenagers. Like you can't hide anything from teenagers. They're pretty clued in when they're getting something that isn't genuine. So if you show them your genuine self, then you'll get their genuine self back. For athletes to put their faith in me to guide them through high pressure situations and, give them the right tools, hold them accountable, absolutely. They also need to trust that I'm going to push them as far as they can go and not too far. Even if they think they've reached their limits, they will trust me if I say they haven't. It's like the fine margin differences that you can make just by having this two-way conversation. And because it's something so little. So I do a lot of one-to-one lessons with fencers, and they kind of come in and I'm always like, how are you doing today? And they might just say, yeah, I'm fine. And that's your kind of generic answer. And if they say, how are you? I might say, oh, we're in survival mode today, but we're working, we're pushing, let's go. And that tiny little bit of honesty might mean that the next time they come in, they will say, yeah, Fran, I'm in survival mode today. And now I have a little bit more information to work with. And I get to learn when that person is in survival mode, do they need to sit down and focus on technical and have their brain completely melted by that? Or do they need me to run them up and down the piste for 10 minutes and physically get it out that way? And just by that little bit of knowledge, I can turn around their entire evening of training. It's a two-way street. And if I'm not honest with them, I can't expect them to be honest with me. And I generally feel it's like a really important part of coaching that is often missed.
Can I share a provocation back with you, see what you think?
Sure.
So is trust the foundation for a thriving relationship?
I would say yes. And again, it's because one of my values is honesty. And I will trust someone until they give me a reason not to. But without honesty, how can you really know what you're doing is the right thing for that person? And if you're going to be an athlete centered coach that believes in autonomy and the athlete journey or the person's journey through the sport rather than just teaching the sport, how can you do that when you don't have honesty within it?
Ultimately, within coaching, we're asking people to do things that feel uncomfortable and feel beyond where their current capabilities are. So you have to have that trust and understanding to be able to stretch and challenge people.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a lovely quote I heard recently: trust grows at the speed of a coconut tree and falls at the speed of a coconut.
That's great. I love that. It's absolutely true. Takes longer to earn trust, but you can break it in a second.
You mentioned when you were explaining what you were adding, feedback. And I suppose there's different ways that feedback can land and different ways that feedback could be given or generated. And from your experiences and perhaps from the most trusting and honest relationships that you've had with fencers, how does feedback live in your environment?
It lives in many different shapes and forms, quite a lot of it through sarcasm, to be honest, because I work with teenagers.
Okay.
So you can't be too direct and you definitely can't be coddly about it. So you kind of develop a language that you both understand. And it kind of goes through there. Again, like fencing is a really individual sport. So I spend a lot of time one on one with my athletes and then some time in the group sessions where they're sparring and giving feedback, but that feedback tends to be very one to one. So it's all kind of done in a language that has naturally grown and developed through this kind of introduction of honesty. And feedback can cause problems if you haven't built up a relationship where you're trusting each other to be honest and open, and you have their best interest at heart. Then that could be a really hard moment that takes a long time to come back from.
When I've worked with football players and in some respects coaches as well at times, and needed to share feedback that's perhaps some people might say it's a difficult conversation. Maybe I'd reframe that as an important conversation. But when I've given feedback that could feel uncomfortable, I've tried to go meta, say, look, what I'm about to say might feel a bit prickly or it might feel uncomfortable, just so it doesn't feel like a personal jab. It's feedback to help performance get better. At the heart of any coach-athlete relationship, having that connectedness on what we're trying to achieve is really important, because it means that the feedback is contributing towards our shared goals. So if I was one of your adolescent fencers who you needed to give some potentially prickly feedback to, what are the things that you're thinking of as a coach to make sure that you land the feedback in the right way?
So I would have already done a bit of baseline work when I'm working with fencers and I see them like their eyes roll or they're like, oh, I will say to them, why am I pushing you? And they'll be like, well, you're my coach. I'm like, yeah, but I could not. I could just say that's fine and move on. And, your parents still give me money and you still get a lesson and you've got a little bit better at fencing. So I'm kind of doing my job. So why aren't I leaving this alone? And then they'll kind of say, it's because you want me to be better. I was like, yes. And why have I decided to be particularly hard on you? And they'll think about it and be like, because maybe you think that I could be really good. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm investing time in you because I think it's worth investing time with you. So every time I'm on your back or I'm being a bit much, it's because I believe you're capable of more and I want to help you get there. So whenever then these difficult conversations come up, I'll be like, we're going to have one of those conversations. We're going to have one of those moments and they know what it's about. And even if I don't go into it like that and I can see that it's having a bit of effect, I will remind them like, why am I doing this? Why am I giving you this feedback when I could just let you live in ignorant bliss? And it's the power of questions then, getting them to think about what my motivation might be behind it, particularly for teenagers. If they think you're just asking them to do something for the sake of it, they really don't want to do it. But if they understand, then they're more happy to do it, particularly if they realize that this is good for them. They're going to be better for it.
You take my mind off to different types of goal. And you said earlier about process over outcome with the way that you might coach. From my understanding, there's 3 different types of goal that you might want to work towards with an athlete: process goal, an outcome goal, or a performance goal. And I hear that in what you're saying, that actually by being able to push and stretch people, you're not just supporting them achieving the outcome they want, that you're helping them develop a process as well, because it helps them build on that determination and that drive and that desire to be the best that they can.
The hero.
there's so much truth in what you were saying. And I met a rugby coach a couple of years ago, and we were talking about feedback, and he said to me that one of the coaches he was in a team of asked him and the group at the start of their season, how do you want to be dropped? And I thought that was such a powerful question, because being deselected is inevitable at some point. But being able to get upstream of that and almost frame it or contract it with your athletes to say, well, when we get to that point, how do you want me to help you, or share that information? It feels like it's such a healthy thing to do, and it maybe helps the athlete be seen and heard as well. And I was just thinking about that as you were talking, that being able to frame at the beginning of a relationship or the beginning of a coaching session, how do you want me to help you best today, could be really valuable for the athlete, because it gives them some agency. And maybe for you, it gives you some signals of perhaps today they just want to be told because that's how they've arrived, or they're in a better headspace to be able to explore some of the problem solving skills for themselves.
One of my kind of tricks before, in a week leading up to a competition, say one of my fencers has like 2 lessons in that week. On lesson number 1, I'll say, is there anything you want to do or go through that's going to help you feel more prepared for the weekend? And again, it's just about they own the journey, and by doing that, it gets them thinking and about what they need and what they need to work on and what's actually happening at the weekend and what skills they need to harness. But also they'll go into that weekend feeling more prepared. And it's another controllable that I've let them control. They've done the training that they feel they needed to do. It just helps them feel that more prepared.
Absolutely. And it links back into what we were saying earlier around more of that holistic support that you offer. Coaching just doesn't just happen on the piste, it happens in other places too. So Fran, thank you. You've added honesty and then linked about trust and feedback into the game plan. To finish our conversation today, we ask every guest to share with us some game-changing advice, something practical and powerful, a takeaway that other coaches might use tomorrow in their own environment. Have you got some game-changing advice for coaches? Maybe something they could apply or adapt or reflect on in their own coaching?
I kind of had a powerful statement kind of here about if you want the best from your athletes, then you have to give them the best of yourself. And I stand by that. But probably a more powerful tool that I can give you is something that I learned from Jonathan Katz, Dr. Jonathan Katz, who's a psychologist and a fencing coach, which is the thrive, manage, and survive. So when you're talking to your fencers, when you're talking to your athletes and you're asking how they are, introduce this concept of thriving means that they are on top, they are ready to go. Nothing could be better. Managing is kind of like, yeah, I'm okay. School is long and I'm a little bit tired, but I'm here and I'm ready to work. And then survival is things are really tough right now. And just those 3 little words really help you understand the person in front of you and what they are currently going for. So thrive, manage, and survive, and use those words back at them. I'm in survival mode today, or yeah, we're managing today, managing. Or, had the best day, thriving. Yeah, ready to go. Use the language back with them. It will help start that journey of honesty.
These 3 aren't just really helpful indicators on how people are arriving, but they link to what you said earlier about having a shared language with the athlete as well.
Really, really important. And even if you kind of change the words that have the same meaning, the concept remains the same. And it's really powerful, actually. I was really surprised at the impact.
So let's bring this to life, Fran, really quickly. So let's think about you. When you're thriving, having a brilliant day, what do you need?
I need nothing. Like, I'm completely happy. Like, I'm existing and life is great. When I'm thriving, like, it doesn't matter who's around me or not around me. I am kind of like happy in myself, in my skin, in my mind. And yeah, just kind of very sort of bubbly and outgoing regardless.
On a day when you're just about managing, what do you need around you, or who do you need around you?
Things get a bit quiet and I need less around me. So that might be a point where like crowds become a bit much for me. Loud noises get a bit frustrating, or if something changes quite suddenly, it will take me kind of a bit longer to process and adapt. But yeah, the more I go towards survival, the less I want around me.
So I can probably guess the answer to the final one then. When you're in survival mode, just to get through, what could people do to be helpful to you?
Less is more.
Okay.
I just want to focus on whatever it is I need to do and get it done. And often coaching actually is a tool that brings me out of struggling and or like out of just managing. Coaching is a huge tool for me because I just love it.
Goodness me, I feel the same way, that when I'm having a tough day, a coaching session feels like the most freeing and cathartic thing you could possibly do, because it just takes you away from all the other challenges.
And I always forget. I'll be going into the cell and I'm sort of feeling like, oh God, I'm really not in the mood for this. And oh, I wish I could just have an evening on the sofa. But as soon as I start coaching, I don't even realize I'm in a better place. And by the end of the night, I'm just like, I'm fine now.
Isn't it amazing how coaching can have that super healing ability?
Yeah. And that's why it's part of who you are, not a job. You don't sort of say to people, I do coaching for a living. You say, I am a coach, and nothing could be more true.
Fran, thank you for being a wonderful guest on the podcast
You're
today.
very welcome.
There's 3 key headlines I'm leaving with, going right back to where we started our conversation. So helping athletes to be better at solving problems. You brought honesty into the game plan. And I've noted down here about trust being the foundation for thriving relationships. And then your key takeaway at the end, thrive, manage, survive. And my note to myself here is about meeting people where they're at. In coaching, we pick people up from different bus stops and we drop them off in different places. So being adaptable as a coach and able to genuinely connect with the athlete on how they're feeling today is a super strength.
Oh, 100%.
Fran, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Game Plan Coaching Podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please follow the show and share it with a coach who might find it useful. I'd love to hear your feedback and any ideas for future guests. You can get in touch through the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and go well in your next coaching session.